Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the Palmetto Championship preview show. I'm also going to recap the Memorial, and I'm going to dive into all the information that I've been digging up because we have a whole new course, a whole new track, no historical data, all that fun stuff. But I've done my homework. I'm going to pass that on to you guys so you get an edge on the DFS lineups and with some betting. So without further ado, give me about 30 minutes. Thanks for stopping by, and let's get into this. Okay, real quick. Of course, I still got the US Open giveaway. In short, that is me giving away 5 entries into the $100 Millie Maker contest coming up here very shortly. Real simply, all you need to do is click that subscribe button if you're not a subscriber. If you are, no problems. And also just click the like button and just tell me who is going to win this US Open in the YouTube comments below. I will then randomly pick 5 winners. If somehow I get to 1,000 subscribers before that time frame, I'm going to go ahead and pick 10. And of course, I will announce these winners all on my Value Play show this upcoming Wednesday, so do not miss that. Okay, without further ado, kind of a crazy tournament. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. I'm sure you guys maybe feel how I did, but it was a really hard tournament to get into. You had the rain delays. You had everything kind of screwed up because of that. Then, of course, you had Jon Rahm, who had to withdraw. I did not like that at all. I feel like there might have been a little conspiracy between Jack Nicklaus feeling like his course was getting tore apart to also maybe the betting channels getting in there to the PGA because, you know, all the guys that had money on Jon Rahm, you lost it because it was a withdrawal. Now, maybe some sites still credited you a payment. I did see that here or there. But for the bookies and for, you know, we'll just say the casinos in Vegas, and DraftKings and everyone were loving it because they didn't have to pay out any of the bets because it was just as if Jon Rahm pulled his back or just decided he didn't want to play anymore, which was not the case. There's so much that we could go into on this, but I don't want to spend a ton of time on that. The short of it is I was very disappointed. You know, I look at, Patrick Cantlay or Morikawa, who I had a large bet on for Morikawa, would have been a nice payout if he could have won. That in the deep of their minds, they had to know that technically they're still runner-ups. And the cost factor that Rahm dealt with, I mean, the guy handled it amazing, but literally losing $2 million for not winning, you know, getting the win for the tournament, which he could have went out and shot 5 over and still won that tournament, or at least got into a playoff. And then also what I think is even crazier is the FedEx points that he lost. He would have been number 1 in FedEx. That's $15 million. If he comes into the FedEx, which, you know, he would have had a good chance of being the number 1 guy. Of course, he starts with like a 10-stroke lead. It's pretty much game over. So I feel terrible for him. I'm not a huge Jon Rahm fan. Of course, on a side note, as you probably saw, he found a new putter that he's in love with and showed that you give that guy a putter and he's confident with that, the guy's going to, you know, destroy a lot of courses. So that's my overall recap. There's so much more I could spend time on, but I'm not going to do it. Let's go jump into the stroke gain analysis real quick. Talk about some of the guys that just recently played. They're going to be playing at the Palmetto. And just so you know how guys are doing from a stroke gain analysis, then I'll get right into the course breakdown. Okay, so what we're looking at here is a lot of stroke gain analysis and everything that happened over the tournament. I know it's a bit of an eye chart, but I'll kind of walk you through it. So just real shortly, the guys in this bright green did the best in a single stroke gain category. Of course, Jon Rahm led in the 2 biggest ones, tee to green and total, dominating the field, was your 2nd round and 3rd round leader. That's about all we need to know about that. If you see these kind of tan color picks, these are guys that were my picks. And then if you see this green color, it just meant they either led in birdies, eagles, bogeys would be red. If you see this purple color, that is guys that are playing in the Palmetto. And if you see this blue color, in short, that was guys if you picked that would have unlocked your lineups to get some more of these 11, 10,000, 9,000 guys, and were what I call just simply the game changers. From a DFS perspective, they were the guys that could really bust open the lineup, and away you went to do some winning. Okay, so real quickly, I think what I'm going to kind of go through is just from my standard or visibility of my picks. The good news, I had picked the top 2 guys, Collin Morikawa and Patrick Cantlay. And a little pat on the back about Patrick Cantlay, you know, not good form coming in since pretty much the West Coast swing, missed 4 cuts. But at the PGA Championship, I saw some positives with the putter and knew that if that putter came along, Patrick Cantlay was still, like a Justin Thomas or like a John Rahm, is an elite golfer on all assets of the game. And if the putter started to work, he was going to be, still very live here. Of course, he's won here at the Memorial. He's had, I think, a second or third before that. So no brainer there. But the hard part was, do you trust that his putter is going to come around? If we look at his stroke gain analysis, gained 3.6 off the tee, gained 6 on approach, gained 4.5 around the green, and gained almost 3 strokes putting. If we look at Morikawa, my other pick, very similar, gained off the tee over 3 strokes, gained almost 7 on approach, which is typical for Colin, gained around 2 around the green, and gained almost 5.5 with the putter. So both did very well, but again, not as good as Rahm, but it is what it is. Okay, Aaron Wise was a good pick of mine too. I had him as like my top 10 picks. Ended up with a T9, and also, his putter, as I mentioned, is coming around. He's getting more confidence in it. The guy is elite, tee to green. You can see here, gained 2.5 strokes with the putter. Everything else solid. Streelman was a T13 pick. I'm sorry, was one of my value play picks. Ended up with a T13, and also did really well. Gained off the tee, gained almost 5 strokes on approach. Lost a little bit with the putter, but overall for Kevin Streelman, costing you $7,500. I think it was a good pick. About after that is where things kind of fell apart. So I had Louis, but, a T18 for Louis. I kind of expect him to be a top 10. Taylor Gooch, now again, was a top 10 pick for the cost of $7,100 to get you a T18. I don't have any problems with that. I was hoping for a little more with Gooch. Kind of had a rough first day, but other than that, shot under. Danny Will is highlighted here because he led actually around the green. And Carlos Ortiz is highlighted in green. I don't know if I already went over this. I don't think I did. Led on approach, gaining almost 9.5 strokes. Danny will also be in this field coming up at the Palmetto. A side note, so someone to think about with a T26, that's pretty good for $6,600. He also had Robbie Shelton at $6,100, who had a T32. He had Sung Kang, the guy that I was on for TPC Craig Ranch, the member there, had a T32, $6,300. Tony Finau was one of my picks. And, Tony's just not been playing that well lately. He had a really nice Friday, and that was about it. Now, you can see he led in all categories except the putter. Again, a lot like these guys that are elite tee to green have just been losing with the putter. So almost lost 6 strokes there. So we needed more out of Tony. He was in my top 5 picks. Lucas Glover, I'll talk more about because he's got some history with this course. But he ended up with a T37. That's the only reason why I just kind of mentioned he will be here. I think he'll be very live. RCB, again, showing up, had a really nice opening round. So, again, a good first-round leader pick. But someone that will be playing coming up here. Doc Redman's been showing some life. He'll be at the Palmetto. Pretty elite, tee to green. We want to look at Doc's stats. Losing off the tee, and he's been kind of doing that. It usually gains on approach, but funny enough, which Doc Redman doesn't typically do, so it's almost kind of reversal. Typically, he gains off the tee on approach, loses with the putter. He's actually flipped that. So if he can get back to form from tee to green, could be someone that's live. Justin Thomas was one of my first picks, and I thought the same thing I saw with Cantlay, that he was starting to get the putter back. Gained 2 strokes at, I believe, the Charles Schwab. But again, lost 8.5 strokes putting and did very well tee to green and around the green. So he's got to burn that putter. He's got to find a new putter, do something. But, man, it is not working out. Kyle Stanley, who I talked about and thought he could be the super chalk bomb. You know what? He made the cut. Actually had a really nice Thursday, Friday. It then kind of fell apart a bit on the weekend, but ended up with a T42. So he didn't blow up on you. I don't know. I think I saw one time maybe the leader in the big game maybe had Kyle Stanley, I believe. But he lost around the green and the putter. My guy I mentioned was Knox, Russell Knox, who didn't do too bad. He made the cut and was something similar to where Stanley ended. I think he ended up like in 50th, around there. Matty Wallace killed me. Missed it by 1 stroke. It would have given me a lot of nice lineups. 6-6 going in. Actually, my best lineup I had with Cantlay and Morikawa at the top. He was the guy that turned into a 5-6, so that kind of stung. Nick Taylor and Sungjae Im. Sungjae Im missed a cut. Nick Taylor had that really hot Thursday. Kind of fell apart. I just mentioned those guys because they're at the Palmetto. Luke List, one of my picks, did not make the cut. Missed it by a stroke or 2. HV3, someone also, both these guys will be there. I think they're, pretty live picks. Okay, Stuart Sink, one of my picks, made the weekend, pretty solid play. I mean, nothing great, but for 7,500, T47. Victor Hovland was one of my top 5 picks, and I've never seen Victor hit the ball as bad as I did at this tournament. It shows here he gained 2.5 strokes with the driver, but he missed more fairways than I've ever seen. You can see what really killed him was the putter and around the green, which these are really interesting stroke in. I didn't look at this up till now. And in my own feelings and perceptions of watching Victor, because I got to see quite a bit of him, it was struggles with tee to green. And, I didn't know it was this bad around the green and putting. But this is typical. So that's one of the first times recently that Victor has lost 5 strokes putting. He has been gaining with the putter, so that's interesting. Griot's one of my picks, missed the cut. Patty Kazire missed the cut. This is where it kind of hurt me. You had Keegan, Kazire, Burns, made the cut but didn't do anything on the weekend. Troy Merritt, made the cut, led the field with the putter, just side note. But I think Patty Kazire could be pretty live at this upcoming event. I'm trying to see anybody else. Charlie Hoffman ended up with a T57. Nothing great. Had a good Friday. Then went 8 over on Saturday. So, but he's going to be playing at the Palmetto. Hopefully, a little comeback there. There's Russell Knox. Ended up with a T57. He wasn't one of my picks. I just stated they were the same price, and I was just nervous with Kyle Stanley at 16% ownership that he could be the super chalk bomb. Hideki was like in my top 10 picks. Actually led the field in bogeys. He made the weekend, had a really nice Friday, led the field off the tee, and then just blew up, almost lost 10 strokes putting. Now, if you got to watch Hideki on Sunday, he literally just gave up. There was 2 players I got to see on Sunday. Harry Higgs, who just blew up, and you could see just didn't give a crap, which is rare. And I don't care what anyone tells me, that guy quit. He finished, but I think he shot like 12 over. He's hitting drivers off the deck into the water, knowing he's got, just crazy stuff. And I think he just literally thought that, he's going to get his 19 grand either way. When you get that low, even if you gain a few, placements, you're not getting. So it was just really interesting. I've never seen a guy blow up that bad. Hideki, I thought after coming out on Saturday, shooting 7 over, that he would really want to come out and do better on Sunday. And I just kind of felt the same thing. He missed a 2-footer. Just like literally walked up, whacked it, missed it. So you can just see what guys finally kind of, cash it in. And then Billy Ho, made the weekend, then went out and smoothed the 10 over on Saturday. And then he came out though on Sunday and, at least I saw him trying, but really lost a ton on approach, lost a little on the putter, which is rare for him, and lost a ton around the green. I think that's it. I think that's all I really wanted to cover with, just the stroke gain side for these guys, but just some things to think about, some guys that are coming up. RCB has been really popping up again. Someone to think about. He'll be at this upcoming Palmetto. All right, let's get to why you guys are here and talk about the Palmetto Championship. Okay, we are heading back to South Carolina. We are on that South Carolina swing. This will be the 3rd tournament there. And we are in Ridgeland, South Carolina, which is about 30 miles from Hilton Head. Not a whole lot around here except this amazing golf course they built. The actual course is Congaree Golf Club. This is a one-and-done event, replacing the RBC again due to travel restrictions. Should be back in 2022. And this course was founded back in 2017. It is very interesting. So you got a couple billionaires that built this course. It is no members, so it's purely, they have picked right now about 200 ambassadors. And these are people that are coming to this place, giving their time and helping high school kids get into colleges by using golf as a tool. It's giving back to the community, giving golf to people that maybe could not afford it either otherwise. And it's just a really interesting, it's a very philanthropical kind of thing going on here. So kudos to them. One of the ambassadors is Lucas Glover, who of course is from the area. And he probably knows the course. If you had to look at all the guys that are going to be playing here the best, this is a course that I'm guessing a lot of these guys have never seen before. And of course, the architect and designer is Tom Fazio, and I'll talk a little more about him. It is a par 71, and it is a test of golf. It is playing over 7,600 yards. Now, there's some nuances of that I'll get into, but it is a long track. Your fairways are Bermuda, and there is no rough. So you either on these very large fairways or you roll right into these sand wastelands. There's not a first cut. There is no rough. It is fairway, and then you're in sand. I'm guessing a lot like Kiowa, there's not going to be anything deemed a sand bunker. It is all going to be deemed these sandy areas. I would guess it would play the same way. And the greens are Bermuda. All right, we're going back to the kind of, very normal 156 player field, cut to 2 T65 and ties. So, we've been in a couple of invites the last 2 events. We are now back to kind of an open field, if you want to call it that. There is no historical cut line, of course, because we've never played here before, and we probably maybe never will again, except, I don't know, maybe like the President's Cup or a Ryder or something. I think it'll be something unique. Maybe a PGA, but it will not be a regular stop on the PGA Tour. Of course, I have no winning scores. You already know that because no one's ever played here. Again, as I kind of mentioned, the course, if you go check it out, and there's not a ton on this. You'll find this or that on YouTube, but really very minimal. But it does look very similar to Kiawah Island, the ocean course that we just saw at the PGA, but add in some trees. The course plays very firm, very fast. That tends to handle, because you're going to have a lot of runoffs. You're going to have, maybe the ball not staying in a lot of the fairways, even depending where you hit it. The ball maybe not staying on these very elevated greens. So you're going to have to be, really good around these greens. You're going to have to be good out of the sand. The course defense, even though these are very wide and generous fairways, but again, as I mentioned, with no first cut or no rough, there is some trees. There's water playing on 5 holes. I actually had to go through and kind of do hole by hole to figure out. So crazy enough, if you go on the PGA Tour and click on the Palmetto, typically you can walk through hole by hole, and you're going to be able to do that with this, but they don't tell you if it's what par it is, and they don't tell you yardage. So it's very interesting. I've never seen that before. But I'm going to walk you guys through hole by hole what's going on here. As I mentioned, there's water that's going to come into play on 5 holes. There's some holes that you have to carry marsh. I mentioned sand is all over the place, some crazy tight lies. You're going to have the collection areas that are going to run off from the green. So like at Kiowa, you're going to have the elevated greens and the ball pitching off. Now, again, I mentioned Tom Fazio is the designer, and he stated that Congaree is literally a low country version of Shadow Creek, which we saw was a one-time event for the CJ Cup in Vegas where he had Kokrak win. So we can look at some information. Kicker is not a lot of guys, because that was like an 80-man field, an invite-only kind of thing there, that are going to have crossover there. Also, I think what's interesting is this course was designed to play like an old par 71 British Open kind of course or Australian Sandbelt course. And what that means is they call it where you can keep the ball on the ground and still play this course, because the ball runs forever is what they state. There's no overseed. So if you hit a fairway, it's going to go and go. Hence, back to that yardage, don't let it freak you out too much, because I see a lot of run out. I also see that you can take certain angles to cut some of this course down, because there's a lot of dog legs, which when you put a dog leg in and you follow that dog leg, it's going to give you more yardage. Okay, so with that said, typically I do a hole by hole overview, and we're going to do that. But this just gives you a quick visual representation of what we're talking about. That's why this is here. And then if you kind of go hole by hole, which this is the only thing I could find that gave you yardage per hole to start to figure out some stuff on, what kind of irons you need in, what kind of play. And I'm going to walk through this in a different way, because I think this is a little difficult, but I actually broke this down hole by hole after. So that's the front 9, and then you got the back 9. And again, this is more to give you a visual. What I notice is there is not a lot of straight holes on this course. There are some crazy long par 4s. You've got a 650-yard par 5. It's just, it looks like it's going to be a pretty tough test, I guess is the simplest way to put it. All right, so this is not visually pleasing, but this was the only way I could really kind of break this down for you guys. There is no scorecard that I could find out there yet. I have no previous scorecard, so I created my own for you guys. So the first hole, par 4, it's a dogleg left. It's 440. You got the number 2 is a par 5. It's 580 yards straight. It's one of the very few straight holes unless it's a par 3. You got a hole number 3, again, another dogleg left. Now, this is a shortable, maybe gettable par 4, but that's the shortest par 4 that I saw on here. Then you got a par 4, 657 yards. It is straight, but water does come into play on your approach. You got a par 5. I'm sorry, hole 5 is a par 3, 165. It's all carry over water. You got hole number 6 is a par 4, 522 yards. Let me say it again. It's a par 4, 522 yards, dogleg left. Again, you should be able to take probably some of the line off of that yardage and also get your run out. You got a par 3, 192 yards. It's just straight. If I have nothing there, there's nothing about it. There's sand around it, but nothing too crazy. Hole number 8 is a par 4, 550 yards pretty much. And it's a forced carry over water off, I believe, the tee. Let's go back. What was that? Hole number 8. Yeah, so it's off the tee. You got to carry this water right there. Just wanted to confirm what that was. Dogleg right again. So it's funny, on the front 9, it looks like if you hit a draw that it's going to favor you. It's funny, the first guys I thought that would actually do well here would have been like a Bubba Watson or Phil Mickelson, just because of shaping the ball both ways and also having the length. Of course, neither of those guys are playing here. And then hole number 9, you have another long par 4, 512 yards, dogleg left. Water is on approach. Will come into play and is around the green. So your front 9 is totally almost 4,000 yards. But again, you got to remember that guys, we're going to need guys with distance and hitting fairways. But I think because of how much the ball should run out, and also taking sight lines to cut some of these dog legs off, it's going to make it play a little less than that, but it's par 36 on the front. Now, again, I've got no confirmation on this. This is me kind of working my way through the yardage and the holes, and of course, being a golfer, knowing his stuff. This is how I see this breaking down. Hole number 10, par 3, 203 yards, pretty much, straight, nothing too crazy there. Hole 11 is a par 4, almost 500 yards, and it's a 90-degree dogleg right. So this thing bends at like an elbow. But again, possibly you could take it over some of the trees, cut some of that off. You're going to get the run. Hole number 12, you got a long par 5, 575 yards. This is now bending back the other way, a dogleg left. You got a hole number 13, par 4, 460 yards. It's just a slight dogleg right. You got a long par 3 at 250 is hole number 14. Hole number 15 is a short par 4. Possibly get pretty close to the green, but it is a little bit of a dogleg left. Hole 16, 434 straight. That could be a scoreable hole there. Hole 17, you get another long par 4, 540 yards, and it's a hard dogleg left. And then number 18, the finishing hole is a par 4, 413, but you got to carry water all on approach to the green, so that's what's going to maybe come into play there. So the back 9 is playing around 3,700 yards. So, you add that up, as I already mentioned, you're playing over 760 yards. But again, I think the yardage may be a little scary because I think you can take some of this off due to the doglegs, and also you're supposed to get a lot of run out. So with that said, this is why I had to break this thing down, was trying to figure out, okay, what the heck do you need to do well here? And the first thing still is going to come to approach, and I put ball striking there because you're going to have to hit the long irons well here. I think distance, driving distance, and hitting the fairways is definitely going to be a plus here. So we're going to need guys with length, but with some accuracy. I think you're going to need around the green and good out of sand, of course. You're going to have to scramble, as mentioned, because you're going to run off these fairways at times. There's nothing to stop. So if you hit a fairway on the right and it kind of just keeps rolling, it's going to roll right off, and you're going to be hitting out of that kind of sand waste area. The proximity of the pins that I'm going to be looking at is 200 plus. And 175 to 200, I think, is what, again, I don't have historical, but what I can see is going to be needed. You got 4 par 4s over 500 yards, which I think that's pretty unique. I'm sorry, you got 3 par 4s over 500 yards on that front 9. You're going to have to be good on par 3s. There's some difficult ones. And then, typically we always say you got to make the hay on the par 5s. We only got 3 of them here, and they are some long par 5s. Now, again, hopefully you can take some of that off, but you're going to need distance to be able to do that. So that's what I'm going with from a model perspective. And as typical, I go in ahead and built a first run model, and I would guess this is probably going to stay pretty, I don't have a lot else to make my changes. So I'm going to probably be sticking with this. And then, of course, when I do my picks, I kind of slim this down. But what you're looking at here is recent form. And I'm looking over the past 12 rounds. And again, as I mentioned, driving distance, I'm weighting 15%. Fairways gain 10%, approach 10, around a green 10%, scrambling 5. Of course, you have to be good out of the sand, so I'm putting 10% on that. Supposedly, these are going to be very complex and undulated and a lot going on with these greens. So I am going to put putting at 10%. I got these longer proximities to the hole at 5%. I put in these par fives because it's kind of unique that you have these kind of long par fives. You got those 3 long par fours, and then ball striking at 10%. And because it's at the end doesn't mean it's not important. It's probably up there with approach, as I mentioned, is the #1 most important. And when you plug that in, and over the last 12 rounds, the guys that pop up that have been doing these things very well, the first one's Terrell Hatton, which was, I don't want to say shocking, but was a little interesting, which we haven't seen in a little bit. I guess we would have saw him at the PGA. I guess that'd be the last time. So we have to look at that. And like I said, I am going to reference guys at Kiowa and take a look at those guys a little heavily. But you can kind of just see some names. Now, again, you got to remember, the field, your top players, of course, is Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Terrell Hatton. You got Matthew Fitzpatrick, Sud J.M., Harris English, Tommy Fleetwood, Kevin Kisner, Garrick Higo, which, is touted as one of the top players. Now, that's that European guy that can go low and can hit the ball pretty long. You got Ian Poulter from a putting standpoint and Charlie Hoffman. And then the rest are kind of like, I don't want to call it the B squad, but, nothing amazing. So it's going to take some work in it. But the good news is with this kind of tournament, I don't want to say anybody can win, but it's going to be a lot more better chance that, of course, not one of the guys that I just mentioned could win this tournament. And then it's not going to shock me if somehow DJ or Koepka pulls out of this tournament. Again, we're right before the U.S. Open, and Koepka with a knee, I'm shocked that he's going to play. And then DJ is pulled out of pretty much every tournament that he's committed to. So we'll see how that works out. Now, if you put on some filters, if you put a par 71 over 7,400 yards in Bermuda, only one golf course pops up, and that's Quail Hollow, which we just saw not too long ago. And so I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. Let's just take this field, take a look at, how they've done against my model, and over the last 12 times, last 3 times they would have played it. You're going to see a bunch of different numbers. Some guys have only played there once. Some guys have only played there a couple times. But long story short, the top guy that pops up, funny enough, is Nick Watney. He's had 8 rounds there. And then you could see Killer Keith, who had a good showing there recently, has the length. I think that's kind of interesting. You got Pat Perez, who, can be pretty elite on approach. Lucas Glover, that I already mentioned, is, I'd say, out of this whole field, knows this course better than anyone. Now, how much he's played it, I don't know. But being there, from what I only know, the only PGA ambassador that I've seen so far, I would think he's going to know this course probably the best. You got Kyle Stanley, who's been pretty hot. Of course, Brooks. Just see if anybody else stands out to me. But again, that's the guys that have done well at Quail Hollow, which is, I don't want to say is an amazing comparable course. I'm just saying from a, par 71, Bermuda, over 7,400 yards, this is the only course that comes up. Okay, and then I mentioned that Tom Fazio stated that another design course of his, Shadow Creek in Vegas, was very similar to what we're going to see here at Congaree, just in a low country area. So I just wanted to take this field, put it against who got to play at Shadow Creek, which I mentioned, it's not going to be a lot of guys. Actually, what you see there is everybody that played at Shadow Creek, and then that's their ranking against in my model. And so Terrell Hatton, of course, who came out and just blitzed the course the first couple of days there. But, of course, Kokrak ended up outright winning that. Ended up second. Tyler Duncan, funny enough, who I think he ended up top 20 at this event. Shows up well here. You got Siwoo, who's coming off a pretty good showing here recently, who's done okay there. But, you don't have a big bunch of names to leverage. But that's just, if you're curious who did well at Shadow Creek that's in this field, that's your information there. And then if you look at comp courses, now this is kind of opening it up a little more. You get clubs like Bay Hill. I think what I did is I turned off par 71, and that popped up. Bay Hill, CCF Houston, CCF Jackson. Of course, the Houston Open is played at the CCF Houston. CCF Jackson's where they play Sanderson Farms. And so anyways, just against some comp courses, and this is, who pops up. Funny enough, Lucas Glover comes up #1. And you can kind of see the names here. You got Luke List, Keith again up here, Pat Perez up there. I think it's kind of odd that DJ's in the middle. But yeah, just to give you some names, you got RCB, who's been playing pretty well. So again, just give you some names of comparable courses, again, from a yardage, Bermuda, but not, actually, I think some of the better comparables would be Keel Island, but nobody, really in this, there's a few guys in this field that played in the PGA, but not a ton. Also, what I'm going to try to do is just look at how guys have done, maybe like in the Australia Open, look at maybe some of the British Opens, the Open. I think the European guys. So actually, the first guy that I thought would be very good here would be like a Leishman or a Cam Smith. And of course, those guys are not in the field. But I think the European guys are going to maybe play in this, not because of wind. This is not an ocean set course. I do think we have some weather coming, but I don't think it's going to be so much on the wind. I think it's just rain and thunderstorms. But in short, it's going to be kind of a creative way to kind of start building lives. I'll get more into that for the picks. And then lastly, what I wanted to look at, because we're on Bermuda, and it's going to be, from everything I understand, complicated greens, that take a look at the best Bermuda putters in this field. This is over the last 24 rounds they played. And so funny enough, Dominic Bozelli comes up number one, but then you have Fitzpatrick, no shocker there, Poulter, Chesson Hadley, that's no shocker. Vaughn Taylor's been showing some good golf. Brandon Grace has been showing up with some good golf, so I think could be live. My Paddy Kazire, I always say I'm 1 week early. I've been on him, but I actually thought he'd do much better last week, so could be very interesting there. Okay, that's it from me. I think that's everything I wanted to share. Hopefully that gets the brain start spinning about the guys that you want to think about looking at. Of course, I will come out with my picks show tomorrow. I'm going to do a bunch more analysis to whatever point that I can to kind of start to weed this down and figure out the guys that we want to play this week. And I appreciate it greatly if you would click the like button, subscribe. Don't forget, if you've not entered into the U.S. Open giveaway, get your picks in now and get into the contest. And always, as usual, if I can help you, hit me up on YouTube comments or on Twitter at DFS Golf Guru. I appreciate it greatly. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.